Hi, my name is David Hills and I'm Senior Director at Ark Workplace Risk. We're working to develop a series of short, informative videos on the key elements of the new building safety regime, the Building Safety Act and its associated legislation. In this video, I'll be focusing on the new requirements regarding external walls, appraisals, information sharing and remediation plans. We currently have two pieces of legislation that cover external walls: the Fire Safety England Regulations of 2022 and the Fire Safety Act of 2021. I intend to take you through the requirements for both. Now, under the Fire Safety Act of 2021, which came into effect in England and Wales in 2022, the responsible person for all residential accommodation where it contains two or more flats, no matter what the height, are required to ensure that the fire risk assessment for the building includes consideration of the building structure and external walls. Now, this requirement has been introduced to ensure that the risks posed by the materials that are used within any external wall construction are properly assessed and that suitable and sufficient control measures are adopted to secure the safety of residents. Now, guidance published in January 2022 by the British Standards Institute, which is sponsored by both the Home Office and the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, is contained within PAS 9980. Now, this has been specifically developed to support the process of assessment and appraisal of external wall constructions and the risks that are posed. And this guidance and the requirement applies to buildings no matter what height, not just those over 18 metres. Now, the new process requires that where a property has any type of cladding system, then this should be subject to what is called a fire risk appraisal of the external wall, known as an FRAEW. And the guidance contained within PAS 9980 makes it clear that the development of an FRAEW is normally beyond the competence of a traditional fire risk assessor. An FRAEW considers the fire performance of the as-built materials that are used to construct the entire wall, as well as other areas such as how the materials are configured. For example, how much material is in there and where are the materials on the external wall, as well as the fire hazards and strategy adopted within the building to ensure that the residents are safe and are able to escape in the event of a fire. And this document, the FRAEW, is very different from an EWS1 form, which is used purely for valuation purposes and is not an assessment of risk. Now, responsible persons who do not currently have all the information required regarding both the external wall construction and the risks posed should now ensure that they undertake an FRAEW and ensure that this is not only undertaken by a competent person, but also covers all of the external walls and determine what the actual as-built construction is. Now, this will probably require formal intrusive investigations as well as the taking of samples to have them tested. Now, not every building will need an FRAEW. Where it is obvious that the walls do not pose a risk of fire spread, such as older buildings with traditional brick and masonry construction, then they will not need an FRAEW. But that should be detailed within the fire risk assessment. Now, in addition to the assessment of risks through the FRAEW, under the new Fire Safety England Regulations of 2022, which comes into force in England only in January 2023, the responsible person must provide their local authority and local fire and rescue service with information about the design of the materials of their building's exterior walls and inform the fire authority of any material change that is ever made to them. This requirement has been introduced to ensure that everyone, owners, managers and residents, have a sound understanding of the materials used in the construction, and the details about the design of the materials of the external wall will also help forewarn the fire and rescue service and enable them to plan for incidents accordingly. Now, as said, this requirement to share information only applies to buildings in this instance that are over 18 metres in height or 7 stories or more. Responsible persons will also be required to provide additional information to the local fire and rescue service in relation to the level of risk of spread of fire. It's also important that they provide the details of the structure, the design and materials and the configuration and how they are mitigating any of those risks. All of that information will come from the FRAEW. When no information is available or an FRAEW has not been completed, the responsible person should provide the information that they do hold to the fire and rescue service whilst they determine the risks and complete an FRAEW and then update their fire risk assessments to include all of the appropriate information. Once the materials are known and the risks are understood and are recorded within the fire risk assessment, the responsible person should provide this updated information to their local fire and rescue service as soon as possible. Now, if any remediation plans are required, that information also needs to be provided to the Fire and Rescue Authority. This should also be dealt with and covered within the fire risk assessment and could include additional interim measures being introduced depending upon the actual risks posed. Our tip would be to ensure that the FRAEW is undertaken as soon as possible and that you check and make sure that you're going to get what you need from that document, and that once completed this can be included within your building safety management system and your safety case. Some management systems, such as CUDA, allow you to store and record details of the external wall and the risks posed by them for each of the buildings, which can be then used to inform not only your fire risk assessment, but also the fire rescue service and form an important part of your safety case required under the Building Safety Act. Finally, the requirement in respect of submitting such information to the Fire and Rescue Service comes into force on the 23rd of January 2023. Thank you for listening. If you'd like more information or see how Ark's Building Safety Assurance Service makes it easy for you to manage risk compliance and safety at your building, then you can contact us using the details provided.